The government sent Toby, a brilliant hydrologist, to the quiet village of Doko to build a dam, a project that promised progress, power, and prosperity. But the villagers whispered warnings. They spoke of vengeful spirits, of men disappearing in the dead of night, of mermaids lurking beneath the river's surface, waiting to drag intruders to their doom. Toby dismissed the tales as superstition until the night he saw her. She wasn't a myth. She wasn't a shadow in the water. She was real, breathtakingly beautiful, impossibly otherworldly, and watching him with sorrowful eyes. What happened next would unravel a deadly secret, ignite a battle between men and nature, and force Toby to choose between duty and desire. Sometimes, the most dangerous force in the river isn't the rushing current, it's the one that can pull you in with just a glance. They thought they were building a dam to tame the river, but instead, they angered something far older and far more powerful. This is the story of how a skeptical scientist fell in love with a mermaid, how a village's past came back to haunt them, and how a single decision could change the fate of Doko forever. Just before we dive deeper into this epic tale, we'd love to know where you're watching from. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow, we've got an extra special story lined up for you, and you definitely won't want to miss it. The village of Doko was never silent at night. The river sang in whispers, the wind carried strange laughter, and shadows moved beneath the moonlit waves. But this time, the voices were not playful. They were warning. Toby stood at the edge of the construction site, staring at the wide river stretching before him. The moon reflected off its surface like a silver mirror, but the water was too still. Unnaturally still. He exhaled, rubbing his hands together. Another missing worker, he muttered. 3 men had vanished in 2 weeks. Strong men, experienced workers, gone without a trace. No bodies. No footprints. Only a single set of wet clothes folded neatly by the riverbank. The villagers were afraid. They whispered of a curse. They spoke of mermaids. Toby didn't believe in such things. He was a government hydrologist, sent to oversee the dam construction. Science explained everything. Rivers had currents, accidents happened, and fear spread like wildfire. But deep inside, something gnawed at him. A splash. Toby's head jerked toward the water. His flashlight trembled as he shone it across the surface. Nothing. Just ripples. Then, movement. A shadow shifted beneath the water, slow and graceful. Then, the faint outline of a woman. Toby froze. His breath caught in his throat. A face emerged from the depths. Large, glowing eyes locked onto his. Lips parted slightly, as if calling him without words. Then, just as suddenly, she was gone. The water settled. Toby staggered backward, heart pounding. Had he just seen? No. It wasn't possible. But deep down, something told him this was only the beginning. Toby barely slept that night. He lay in his small tent, staring at the fabric roof as the night sounds of the village surrounded him. The chirping of crickets, the rustling of trees, and, somewhere far off, the distant, haunting echo of laughter. Morning came with the scent of roasted maize and the chatter of villagers. Toby made his way to the village square, where the elders sat beneath the ancient baobab tree. Chief Bala, a tall man with deep lines on his face, eyed Toby warily. "You saw something last night, didn't you?" Toby hesitated. "I don't know what I saw." The villagers exchanged nervous glances. An elderly woman muttered a prayer under her breath. "The river is angry," the chief said. "We warned the government not to build here, but they did not listen. Now the spirits of the water are taking revenge." Toby sighed. "Chief, I respect your beliefs, but there's no proof." 3 men have disappeared," Chief Bala interrupted. "No blood, no struggle. Only the river." Toby had no answer to that. The chief leaned closer. "Listen to me, son. If you wish to live, stay away from the water. But how could he? His job was to oversee the dam construction. He couldn't just walk away. Yet, deep inside, something told him the chief was right. And that night, when the moon rose over the river, Toby found himself drawn back to the water's edge. Waiting. Toby stood at the riverbank, the cool night breeze brushing against his skin. His heart pounded as he stepped closer. The water was still. Too still. Then, movement. A shape glided beneath the surface. And then, she rose. Her dark, wet hair clung to her shoulders. Her skin glowed under the moonlight, and her eyes, large and luminous, held a sadness Toby could not understand. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. Toby stumbled back. His mind screamed at him to run, but his feet remained planted. What are you?" The mermaid sighed, her voice like the wind through the trees. "My name is Naya. And if you don't leave this place, you will not live to see the next full moon." Toby swallowed. He should have been terrified. But instead, he felt something else. Curiosity. And something deeper, something dangerous. Fascination. Toby didn't know how long he stood there, staring at her. "Why are you warning me?" he finally asked. Naya glanced at the river, then back at him. "Because I don't want to see you disappear like the others." A chill ran down his spine. They were taken. Naya nodded. By the others. Others. She looked around nervously, as if afraid of being heard. "There are more like me. But they are not as kind." Toby's breath caught in his throat. He had spent his life studying rivers, currents, and tides. He had never believed in things like mermaids. But now, he believed. And for the first time since he arrived in Doko, he was afraid. Naya's fingers brushed the water's surface. "Please, Toby. Leave before it's too late." But how could he? Something about her, her voice, her eyes, held him captive. "I can't," he whispered. Naya sighed. "Then you must promise me one thing." Toby nodded. "When they come for you, don't fight." A shiver ran through him. Because deep down, he knew. The others would come. And when they did, not even Naya could save him. Toby lay awake in his tent, Naya's words echoing in his mind. "When they come for you, don't fight." The night air felt heavier than usual. The river outside the camp seemed louder, as if it was calling his name. At dawn, the construction site was buzzing with tension. The missing workers had left everyone uneasy, and rumors spread like wildfire. Some wanted to leave. Others whispered about mermaids luring men to their deaths. Toby tried to focus on his job. He inspected the blueprints, checked water levels, and pretended not to hear the villagers murmuring behind his back. "They say he was at the river last night," someone whispered. "He's next," another muttered. Toby clenched his jaw and turned away. He didn't believe in curses. He believed in science. But that night, as he stood by the river again, he wasn't so sure. The water rippled. A shadow moved beneath the surface. And then, Naya appeared. "You came back," she whispered. Toby nodded. "I need to understand." Naya looked at him with sad eyes. "Then listen carefully. You are in danger." A cold wind blew across the water. Somewhere in the distance, a voice, low and guttural, echoed from the depths. Naya flinched. "They're watching us." Toby's pulse quickened. "Who are they?" She hesitated, then whispered, "The river's guardians. They do not forgive trespassers." Something stirred beneath the water. A shape. A presence. And for the first time, Toby truly felt it. He was being watched. The next morning, another worker went missing. This time, There were footprints, leading straight to the river's edge. But no footprints returning. The village erupted in panic. The workers refused to continue. Some packed their bags, swearing they would never return. Chief Bala called an emergency meeting. "This has gone on long enough," he declared. "We must act before more men are taken." Toby sat among the villagers, listening as the chief continued. "These creatures, these mermaids, must be dealt with." Murmurs of agreement spread through the crowd. Toby's stomach twisted. "You don't even know if mermaids are responsible," he protested. Chief Bala's gaze was hard. "Then tell me, city men, where did they go?" Toby had no answer. The chief stood. "Tomorrow, we strike. We will drive them out." The crowd erupted in cheers. But Toby's heart pounded with dread. Because he knew, if the villagers attacked the river, they would find Naya. And she wouldn't survive. The morning of the attack came too quickly. Armed with spears and nets, the villagers marched toward the river. Their chants echoed through the trees, their footsteps shaking the ground. Toby ran ahead, desperate to find Naya before they did. He reached the riverbank, panting. "Naya," he called. Silence. He scanned the water, heart pounding. Where was she? Had she fled? Then, a splash. Naya's head broke through the surface. "Toby." He rushed forward. "You have to go." "The villagers." A shout rang out behind him. Toby turned just in time to see the net fly through the air. It landed over Naya, dragging her down. She screamed, thrashing against the ropes as the villagers waded into the water. Toby's heart stopped. No. But it was too late. They pulled Naya to shore, her tail glistening in the sunlight. The crowd gasped. Some stepped back in fear. Others stared in awe. "She's real," someone whispered. Naya's wide eyes met Toby's. "Help me." But the villagers had already tightened the net. And as Toby watched them drag her away, he knew one thing for certain. The river's revenge had only just begun. They locked Naya in a wooden cage in the center of the village. She lay on the damp floor, her breathing shallow, her tail twitching weakly. Toby pushed through the crowd, his pulse racing. "You can't keep her like this." Chief Bala folded his arms. "She is a danger to us." "She saved my life," Toby shot back. The chief's eyes narrowed. "And yet, our men are still gone." Toby clenched his fists. "Hurting her won't bring them back." Chief Bala turned to the crowd. "She will answer for what has happened. Tomorrow, we take her to the river and demand the spirits return our people. If they refuse." He didn't finish his sentence. He didn't have to. Toby's blood turned to ice. If the spirits didn't return the missing men, Naya would die. And deep down, Toby knew the river wouldn't forgive this. That night, as he sat outside the cage, watching Naya's weak breaths, he made his decision. He couldn't let her die. Even if it meant betraying the village. Even if it meant losing everything. He would set her free. Toby sat outside the cage, his heart pounding as he listened to Naya's weak breaths. The village was silent now, the villagers having retreated to their homes for the night. But he knew that by morning, they would drag her back to the river. And they would not show mercy. Naya's fingers curled around the wooden bars, her skin pale and dry. She wasn't meant to be out of the water for this long. "Toby," she whispered. "I can't stay here much longer." His fists clenched. "I won't let them hurt you." Her eyes met his, filled with something he couldn't name, something that made his resolve stronger. He took a deep breath and looked around. The guards keeping watch were drowsy, their torches flickering. If he moved quickly, he could free her before they noticed. But how? The cage was reinforced with thick wooden planks and tied with heavy ropes. His mind raced. Then he remembered the blacksmith's hut was nearby. If he could get his hands on a knife or a sharp tool, he could cut the ropes and carry her to the river before the alarm was raised. It was risky. If the villagers caught him, he would be punished. But if he did nothing, Naya would die. And that was not an option. Toby rose to his feet, glancing once more at the sleeping guards. Then, without a sound, he disappeared into the night. The blacksmith's hut was dark, but the embers of the forge still glowed faintly. Toby searched the workbench, his fingers closing around a sharp blade. He turned to leave. But a voice stopped him. "You're making a mistake." Toby's breath caught. He spun around to see a figure in the doorway. It was Bala's son, Jairo. Jairo was young but strong, a hunter like his father. He had always watched Toby with suspicion. And now, his eyes burned with quiet fury. "You're trying to free her," Jairo said. Toby gripped the knife tighter. "She's innocent." Jairo scoffed. "Innocent? Our brothers are missing because of her kind. We don't know that." Jairo stepped closer. "If you do this, you will never be welcome in this village again." Toby's chest ached. He had come to Doko for work, but the people had accepted him, fed him, shared their stories. And now, he was about to betray them. But when he thought of Naya, caged like an animal, gasping for breath, there was no choice. He pushed past Jairo. Then so be it. Jairo didn't try to stop him. But as Toby slipped back into the darkness, he knew one thing. Jairo wouldn't stay silent. And time was running out. Toby moved swiftly through the village, the knife hidden beneath his shirt. Naya was barely conscious when he returned. Her eyes fluttered open as he knelt beside her. "I'm getting you out of here," he whispered. She tried to smile but was too weak. "You shouldn't risk yourself." But Toby was already sawing through the ropes. His heart pounded with each stroke, the fibers snapping one by one. "Hurry," Naya murmured. The guards stirred. One grunted in his sleep. Toby held his breath, waiting. Silence. He cut faster. The last rope snapped. The cage door swung open. Naya collapsed into his arms. She was heavier than he expected, but he lifted her carefully, wrapping a cloth around her tail. "Hold on," he whispered. He took a step forward. A shout rang out. A torch flared to life. "Stop him!" Toby's stomach dropped. The village was awake. And they were coming for him. Toby ran. His feet pounded against the dirt path as the villagers gave chase. "Stop them!" Chief Bala roared. Toby's arms ached as he carried Naya. She was barely breathing, her skin growing colder. The river wasn't far. He could hear the water rushing ahead, calling to her. But the villagers were closing in. A spear whizzed past his ear. Another struck the ground near his feet. "Toby!" Naya gasped. "You have to leave me." "No," he tightened his grip. "We're almost there." The trees thinned, revealing the riverbank. Freedom. But just as he reached the water's edge, a strong hand grabbed his arm. Toby twisted, struggling, but more hands seized him. He fell to his knees, Naya slipping from his grasp. The villagers surrounded them, their faces hard with anger and betrayal. Chief Bala stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "You would betray your own people for a creature of the river?" Toby's breath came fast. "She's not our enemy." The chief's eyes darkened. "Then you will share her fate." Toby's heart pounded. Because he knew what that meant. They were both going to die. The villagers dragged Toby and Naya back toward the village square. But before they could reach it, a deep, guttural sound rumbled through the air. The river. It churned violently, waves crashing against the shore. Then, shadows rose from the water. Figures with glowing eyes. Mermaids. Dozens of them. The villagers froze in terror as the creatures emerged, their forms glistening under the moonlight. One, larger than the rest, stepped forward. Her voice was like thunder. "You have taken one of our own." Chief Bala stood firm. "Your kind has stolen our men." The mermaid's gaze darkened. "No. We only took those who dared harm the river." Toby's breath caught. The missing workers, had they been guilty of something? Had the river only been protecting itself? The mermaid looked at Naya, then at Toby. "You saved her." Toby nodded. A moment of silence. Then, the mermaid turned to the villagers. "Release them," she commanded. Chief Bala hesitated. Then, more movement. The river churned, and from its depths, figures began to emerge. The missing men. Alive. The villagers gasped. The mermaid's eyes gleamed. "Now choose. War, or peace." Chief Bala's hands trembled. The village held its breath. And Toby knew. Everything would be decided in the next moment. The entire village stood frozen, their eyes darting between the mermaids and the missing men who now waded through the shallow water. Toby's heart pounded. The moment stretched unbearably long. Would the chief choose war or peace? Chief Bala clenched his jaw, staring at the mermaid queen. "If you had our men all along, why did you not return them sooner?" The queen's expression was unreadable. "Because they harmed the river. They tried to take more than they were given." Murmurs spread through the villagers. An elder stepped forward. "What do you mean?" The queen flicked her wrist, and the water shimmered, revealing images, workers pouring toxic chemicals into the river, others dumping waste, some even dynamiting rock formations in ways that disrupted the water's flow. Toby's stomach dropped. The workers had been careless. The villagers gasped. Some turned to one another in disbelief. Others hung their heads. "These men were taken to protect the balance," the queen said. "But they were not killed. Only warned." One of the released men, a foreman, stepped forward, his voice shaking. They showed us things we never noticed before. The way the fish stopped coming, the plants dying. We didn't realize what we were doing." The villagers turned to Chief Bala. The chief's face was unreadable, but after a long pause, he exhaled heavily. "The river has always been sacred to us," he said. "We forgot that in our desire to build." Toby watched as the chief stepped forward, looking at Naya's weakened form. Then at Toby. He turned back to the queen. "We will stop the dam construction," Bala finally said. The villagers murmured in shock. The chief raised his hand for silence. "But in return, the river must promise to leave our people unharmed." The mermaid queen considered his words before nodding. "If you respect the river will protect you." A sigh of relief rippled through the crowd. The war had been avoided. But it wasn't over yet. Because Naya was still dying. Toby knelt beside Naya, brushing damp hair from her face. "Hold on," he whispered. Her skin had lost its glow, her breathing shallow. She had been out of the water for too long. The mermaid queen turned to the others. "We must return her to the depths immediately." Toby lifted Naya gently and rushed toward the river's edge. The villagers parted, watching in silence as he waded into the water, cradling her against his chest. The moment her body touched the surface, the water shimmered. Mermaids surrounded them, their hands glowing softly as they reached for her. Toby hesitated. He didn't want to let go. Naya's fingers brushed his cheek. "You saved me," she whispered. Toby swallowed hard. "I'll find you again." Her lips curled into a weak smile before she slipped from his arms, disappearing beneath the surface. The water stilled. She was gone. For a long moment, Toby simply stood there, his heart aching. Then, the Mermaid Queen's voice cut through the silence. "You have done something no man has ever done before." Toby turned. "What?" "You have earned the river's favor." With that, the mermaids vanished into the depths, taking Naya with them. The villagers slowly retreated, their whispers fading into the night. But Toby remained, staring into the water. Because deep in his heart, he knew. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. Toby stood knee-deep in the river, his arms still outstretched, though Naya had long vanished beneath the water's surface. The cool night air settled over the village, thick with tension and uncertainty. Behind him, the villagers watched in silence. Some clutched their children, while others exchanged wary glances. The once angry crowd had been humbled by what they had witnessed. Chief Bala stepped forward, his heavy footsteps crunching the damp soil. "It is done," he said, his voice carrying a weight that could crush mountains. Toby turned to face him, his hands trembling at his sides. "She would have died if we hadn't let her go." The chief's sharp gaze lingered on the water. "And what does that mean for us?" "For the dam." Toby hesitated. He had come here to do a job. The dam had promised progress, clean energy, and economic growth. But now, he saw the cost. "The dam, it will destroy the river," he admitted. "Not just for the mermaids, but for you, too." A low murmur spread through the villagers. They had relied on the river for centuries, for food, for water, for life. An elder woman, bent with age but still possessing a sharp mind, stepped forward. "The river has always been our lifeblood. But if we stop the dam, what happens to our future? The government will not be pleased." Toby's jaw tightened. She was right. Jairo, Bala's son, scoffed from the crowd. "So what? We give up everything because of some fishwomen." Toby's temper flared. "They're not just fishwomen. They are protectors of the river. They're the reason you even have a village to begin with." Jairo's eyes burned with defiance, but before he could respond, Bala raised a hand. "Enough." Silence fell. The chief's gaze bore into Toby. "Are you saying we must defy the government?" Toby exhaled, feeling the weight of the decision pressing against his chest. "I'm saying we need to find another way." Bala's lips pressed into a thin line. "And if there is no other way?" Toby hesitated. If they defied the dam project, the government might retaliate. But if they built it, the river, and its guardians, would be lost forever. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I have to try." The village meeting lasted until the moon was high in the sky. People argued, debated, whispered. Some still believed in the dam. Others feared the wrath of the mermaids. By the time Toby returned to his small hut, exhaustion clung to him like wet clothes. He sat heavily on the wooden bench, running a hand down his face. He had risked everything to save Naya. But what now? A soft knock at the door made him stiffen. He turned to find an unexpected visitor. Miriam, the village healer, stood at the entrance. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp with knowing. "May I come in?" Toby nodded, gesturing for her to enter. She stepped inside, her colorful robes swaying. In the dim candlelight, her face seemed unreadable. "You did something very foolish today," she said at last. Toby sighed. "I know." Miriam tilted her head. "Do you?" He looked up, confused. "You saved her," she continued. "You saved the river. But you have also made enemies." Toby's stomach twisted. "Jairo." Miriam gave a small, knowing smile. "Among others." Toby frowned. "The chief." "Chief Bala is torn," Miriam interrupted. He knows you speak the truth, but he also fears for his people. The government will not be pleased. And there are those in this village who still believe the mermaids are a threat. Toby rubbed his temples. So what am I supposed to do? Miriam leaned forward, lowering her voice. Find the truth. The dam project, there is more to it than you know. Toby's breath caught. What do you mean? She hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. I have lived in this village for many years. I have seen outsiders come and go. But I have never seen a government project move so quickly. Toby's pulse quickened. Miriam met his gaze. Someone is hiding something. Sleep was impossible. Miriam's words gnawed at Toby's mind like termites on wood. If there was more to the dam project, he needed to find out. The next morning, while the village was still waking, Toby made his way to the government camp. The workers had set up their site just outside the village, where large machines sat idle. Blueprints and documents lay scattered across tables under a makeshift tent. Toby approached one of the engineers, a young man named Musa. "Hey," he said casually. "I was wondering if I could take another look at the dam plans." Musa glanced at him, then at the documents. "Why? I thought you already approved them." Toby forced a shrug. "Just making sure everything's on track." Musa hesitated, but finally nodded. "Fine. But be quick." Toby sifted through the papers, scanning the blueprints, budgets, and environmental reports. And then, he saw it. A separate document. Stamped confidential. His hands trembled as he read. This wasn't just a hydroelectric dam. It was a mining operation. The government wasn't just trying to provide power. They were after the rare minerals buried beneath the riverbed. And they didn't care what they destroyed to get them. Toby's heart pounded. The dam wasn't just about energy, it was about greed. And if the village stood in their way, they would be crushed. A shadow fell over the table. Toby looked up. And his stomach dropped. J-Ro stood across from him, arms crossed, eyes gleaming with suspicion. "What are you doing?" Toby swallowed hard. "Nothing." J-Ro's eyes flickered to the document in Toby's hands. His expression darkened. "I knew it." Toby's fingers tightened around the papers. J-Ro. But before he could say another word, J-Ro turned on his heel and marched toward the chief's hut. Toby's blood ran cold. If J-Ro told Bala about this, everything would spiral out of control. Toby had to act fast. Because now, the battle wasn't just about saving the river. It was about saving the village itself. Toby's hands clenched into fists as he watched J-Ro disappear down the path toward the chief's hut. His heart pounded like the village drums during a festival, loud, insistent, and filled with warning. He had two choices. Confront J-Ro and try to reason with him. Find another way to stop the dam before it was too late. The second option made more sense. J-Ro had never liked him, and their last argument had only deepened that divide. But the thought of standing by while J-Ro twisted the truth made Toby's stomach churn. He had no time to waste. Toby dashed after him, his feet kicking up dust. Villagers were just beginning their morning routines, fetching water from the well, tending to animals, and sweeping the dusty paths. They barely paid him any attention as he raced toward the chief's hut. Just as J-Ro reached the entrance, Toby grabbed his arm. "Wait." J-Ro yanked his arm free and turned, his face twisted in anger. "You don't get to stop me, city boy." "J-Ro, listen to me," Toby said, keeping his voice low. "The government is lying to us. This dam isn't just about power, it's about mining. They're after minerals buried beneath the river. That's why they don't care about the damage." J-Ro's eyes flickered with hesitation. "You expect me to believe that?" Toby lifted the document he had taken from the engineering tent. "It's all here. They hid this from the village. Jairo snatched the paper and scanned the contents. His jaw tightened, and for a moment, Toby saw something flicker across his face, doubt. But then, Jairo scoffed and shoved the document back at him. "You think this changes anything?" he hissed. "You think Chief Bala will just defy the government because of some piece of paper?" Toby's pulse quickened. If he knows the truth. Jairo shook his head. He already made a deal, Toby. The dam is happening whether you like it or not. Toby's blood ran cold. What deal? Jairo leaned in, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. The chief agreed to let the dam be built in exchange for government protection and money for the village. Toby's heart clenched. He wouldn't. But deep down, he knew. The chief had always been caught between his duty to the village and the promises of progress. Jairo smirked. "Now, I suggest you stay out of this before you get yourself into trouble." Toby stared at him, breathing hard. Every muscle in his body screamed at him to fight back, to force Jairo to listen, but he knew it wouldn't work. Jairo had already chosen his side. And now, Toby was running out of allies. Toby stormed away from the chief's hut, his mind spinning. The village had been betrayed. The dam would be built. And Naya. He clenched his fists. He had promised to protect her. To protect the river. But how? A voice broke through his thoughts. "Toby." He turned sharply. Miriam stood in the shade of a large baobab tree, watching him with knowing eyes. He took a deep breath and approached her. "You were right. The dam isn't about electricity, it's about mining. And now the chief has made a deal to let it happen." Miriam's expression didn't change, but she reached into the folds of her robe and pulled out a small leather pouch. She pressed it into his hands. "Take this," she said softly. Toby frowned and opened the pouch. Inside were dried leaves, crushed herbs, and something that shimmered like tiny scales. "What is this?" "A protection charm," Miriam said. "The waters are restless. The mermaids know something is coming. If you wish to see Naya again, you must tread carefully." Toby swallowed. "You think the mermaids will attack?" Miriam didn't answer. Instead, she stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "There are things older than men, older than kings. The river has always taken what it is owed. Be careful, Toby. The balance is shifting." Chills ran down his spine. "Where do I go from here?" he asked. Miriam's eyes softened. "That is for you to decide." And with that, she turned and disappeared down the path, leaving Toby alone with his thoughts. He had wanted the truth. Now he had it. But what was he supposed to do next? Then, as if in answer, the wind carried a familiar sound to his ears. A song. Faint. Melancholy. Coming from the river. Naya. Toby's heart leaped, and before he could think twice, he was running toward the water. The river shimmered under the rising sun, its surface smooth as glass. But something moved beneath the water, dark and graceful. Toby stepped closer, his breath catching as a figure broke through the surface. Naya. She was weak but alive, her pale blue eyes searching for him. When they met his, relief flickered across her face. "You came," she whispered. Toby dropped to his knees by the water's edge. "Naya. I was afraid I'd never see you again." She reached for him, her fingers trembling. He took her hand without hesitation, the warmth of her touch sending a jolt through him. "You are in danger," Naya said. "The river is angry. The others, they are preparing to fight." Toby stiffened. "Fight?" She nodded. "They will not allow the dam to be built. They will not let your people destroy the water." Toby's stomach twisted. "Naya, listen to me. If they attack, the government will strike back. This will become a war. Naya's eyes darkened. It has already begun. A cold shiver ran down Toby's spine. He thought he had time to stop this. But the battle had already been set in motion. Toby tightened his grip on her hand. There has to be another way. Naya hesitated. There might be. But you would have to trust me. Toby nodded. Always. She pulled him closer, until their foreheads nearly touched. Then meet me here tonight. Alone. Toby searched her face. What will happen tonight? Her lips parted, but before she could speak, a voice rang out from the trees. Toby. He jerked back, heart pounding. J-Ro. Toby turned sharply, seeing J-Ro standing at the edge of the clearing, his eyes burning with suspicion. What are you doing? J-Ro demanded. Toby glanced at Naya, who was already slipping back into the water. He turned back to J-Ro, his mind racing. He had to make a choice. Tell the truth, or lie. Because one wrong move, and everything would be lost. Toby's heart pounded as he turned to face J-Ro. The suspicion in J-Ro's eyes burned like fire, and Toby knew one wrong word could bring everything crashing down. What are you doing here? J-Ro asked again, stepping forward, his voice sharp with accusation. Toby forced himself to stay calm. He couldn't let J-Ro know about Naya. Not now. I needed a moment to think, Toby said, shrugging. The river helps clear my mind. J-Ro's eyes narrowed. He glanced at the water, then back at Toby. You were talking to someone. Toby let out a short laugh. Talking to the river. Maybe I've been in this village too long. J-Ro didn't smile. He took another step closer. You're hiding something. Toby's muscles tensed. J-Ro wasn't going to drop this easily. Before he could speak, J-Ro's gaze flicked to the water. Was it her? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Toby's breath caught. Who? The mermaid, J-Ro spat. I saw you with her before. You think I don't know what's going on? Toby's mind raced. J-Ro already suspected the truth, there was no point in denying it completely. But if he admitted everything, J-Ro would run straight to the chief, and Naya would be in danger. So Toby chose his words carefully. I saw something in the water, he said slowly. But I don't know what it was. J-Ro scoffed. You're lying. Toby crossed his arms. Think what you want, but I'm telling the truth. The river is strange, there are things in it we don't understand. Maybe it was a fish. Maybe it was something else. J-Ro studied him for a long moment. Then, without another word, he turned on his heel and walked away. Toby exhaled, his entire body sagging with relief. But as he turned back to the river, Naya was already gone. And he knew, this was only the beginning. That night, the village was restless. People whispered in hushed tones. The air was thick with unease. Toby stayed in his hut, staring at the leather pouch Miriam had given him. A protection charm. He didn't know if he believed in such things. But after everything he had seen, Naya, the disappearing workers, the anger of the river, he wasn't sure of anything anymore. As the moon rose high in the sky, he slipped out of his hut and made his way toward the river. The village was quiet. Too quiet. Toby's gut tightened. He had the strange feeling that someone was watching him. But when he looked around, he saw nothing but shadows. He pressed forward. By the time he reached the riverbank, Naya was waiting. She looked different. Stronger. More determined. You came, she whispered. Toby nodded. You said you had a plan. Naya took a deep breath. The mermaids are preparing to fight. If the dam is built, our home will be destroyed. The river will die. Toby swallowed. I know. But the chief has already made a deal. He won't back down. Naya's eyes darkened. Then we have no choice. Toby stepped closer. There has to be another way. We can find proof, show the village what the government is really doing. Naya hesitated. And if they don't believe you? Toby clenched his fists. Then we make them believe. Naya studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. There is something you must see, she said. Come with me. Toby hesitated. Where? Naya extended a hand. Below. His heart pounded. He had never been beneath the river. Would he survive? But as he looked into her eyes, he knew he had to trust her. Taking a deep breath, he grasped her hand. And as the water closed over him, everything went dark. For a moment, Toby panicked. The water pressed in from all sides, cold and endless. But then, he could breathe. The shock of it made him gasp, but no water entered his lungs. He turned to Naya, eyes wide. How? She smiled. I will not let you drown. Then, she pulled him deeper. Toby's mind could barely process what he was seeing. The river wasn't just water, it was alive. Glowing plants swayed with the current. Fish darted in and out of shimmering coral-like formations. Strange creatures watched from the shadows. And then, Toby saw them. Mermaids. Dozens of them. They moved like shadows, their sleek bodies cutting through the water with effortless grace. Some were watching him warily, their eyes filled with suspicion. Others whispered to one another in a language he couldn't understand. Naya led him to the riverbed, where a massive stone structure stood, ancient, covered in carvings. This, she said, is the heart of the river. Toby stared. What is it? Naya ran her fingers over the carvings. The source of our power. It keeps the river alive. Toby frowned. And the dam? Naya turned to him, her expression grave. If they break the riverbed to mine, this will be destroyed. Toby's breath caught. This wasn't just about the mermaids. If the heart of the river was destroyed, the water itself could disappear. The village wouldn't survive. Toby looked back at Naya. We have to stop them. Naya nodded. But we must act fast. The others will not wait much longer. If we do nothing, there will be war. Toby clenched his fists. He had come here to build a dam. Now, he had to destroy it. The weight of Naya's words settled deep in Toby's chest as they swam back toward the surface. The glowing plants and the eerie beauty of the riverbed faded behind them, replaced by the cold urgency of what lay ahead. If the heart of the river was destroyed, the land would die. The village would suffer. And Naya's people. Toby clenched his fists as he emerged from the water, gasping slightly as the cool night air met his face. Naya surfaced beside him, her pale blue eyes searching his for an answer. We don't have much time, she whispered. Toby nodded, his mind racing. I have to try one last time. Naya tilted her head. Try what? To stop this dam, he said, determination settling into his bones. The chief made a deal, but if I can convince him that this will destroy the village. Naya's gaze darkened. And if he refuses to listen? Toby hesitated. Then, he exhaled. Then I'll have to stop it myself. Naya studied him for a long moment, as if weighing the truth in his words. Then she nodded. I will be waiting. Without another word, she slipped beneath the water, disappearing into the depths. Toby turned back toward the village, his pulse pounding. He had no plan. No proof, except what he had seen with his own eyes. But he couldn't stand by and watch the destruction of everything he had come to care about. He had to act. Toby reached the chief's hut just before dawn. The village was still half asleep, but he knew time was running out. He knocked urgently. A few moments later, the door creaked open, and Chief Bala stepped into the doorway, his face lined with exhaustion. "Toby," he frowned. "What are you doing here at this hour?" Toby took a deep breath. "Chief, I need to talk to you. It's urgent." The chief studied him for a long moment, then stepped aside. "Come in." Inside, the air was thick with the smell of burning incense. Toby stood before the chief's wooden table, his heart pounding. "You look troubled," Chief Bala said, lowering himself into a chair. Toby swallowed hard. "I know about the deal you made with the government." The chief's expression didn't change. "And they're not just building a dam," Toby said. "They're mining beneath the river. If they do that, the riverbed will collapse." The chief's eyes flickered with something unreadable. "What proof do you have?" Toby hesitated. "I saw it. I've been beneath the river." The chief's face darkened. "You have been where?" Toby realized too late that he had said too much. Chief Bala leaned forward, his voice dangerously low. "Have you been speaking with them?" Toby's blood ran cold. "Chief." The old man's eyes burned with something fierce. "Do you know what you are dealing with, boy?" Toby's hands clenched at his sides. "They're not monsters," he said. "They just want to protect their home." The chief exhaled sharply, rubbing his forehead. "Toby, you don't understand." Toby's heart pounded. "Then explain it to me." The chief was silent for a long time. Then, finally, he spoke. "There was a time," he said, "when the mermaids and the people of this village lived in peace. But long ago, a war broke out. A war over the river. Blood was spilled. And ever since, there has been no trust between us." Toby's throat tightened. "That was long ago. This is different." The chief shook his head. "You think you can change what has been broken for centuries?" Toby's voice was firm. "I have to try." The chief sighed, his eyes heavy with something that almost looked like sorrow. "Then you are walking a dangerous path, my son." Toby took a deep breath. "Then let me prove it to you." The chief studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. "You have until the next full moon." Toby's heart leaped. The next full moon. It wasn't much time, but it was something. "Thank you," he said. The chief didn't answer. But as Toby turned to leave, the old man's voice stopped him at the door. "Be careful, Toby," the chief murmured. "The river does not forgive easily." Toby left the chief's hut with new determination. He had a deadline. 1 month. 1 month to prove that the river was worth saving. 1 month to stop the dam. And he had no idea how to do it. As he made his way back toward the river, a shadow stepped into his path. Jairo. Toby stiffened. "What do you want?" Jairo crossed his arms. "I could ask you the same thing." Toby narrowed his eyes. "I don't have time for this, Jairo." Jairo smirked. "That's funny. Because I think time is exactly what you're running out of." Toby's stomach twisted. "What are you talking about?" Jairo stepped closer, his voice low. "I know what you're trying to do. And I know who you're working with." Toby's blood ran cold. Jairo leaned in, his smirk widening. "And I'm going to stop you." Toby's heart pounded. Jairo. But before he could say another word, Jairo turned and disappeared into the shadows. Toby's fists clenched. He had 1 month. But now, he also had an enemy. Toby couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Ever since his confrontation with Jairo, paranoia clung to him like a second skin. Every rustling leaf, every shadow seemed like a threat. He had 1 month. 1 month to prove the river's importance before the chief gave the final approval for the dam. 1 month before everything was lost. But now, Jairo was watching him. And if Jairo told the wrong people, if he alerted the construction company or the government, Toby might not even have that much time. As Toby made his way to the river that night, he kept looking over his shoulder. Naya was waiting for him at the water's edge, her long, shimmering hair reflecting the moonlight. "You're late," she said softly. Toby exhaled. "Jairo is onto me." Naya's expression darkened. "Does he know about me?" Toby hesitated. "He suspects. And if he finds proof, he'll use it against us." Naya's tail flicked in agitation. "We should stop him before he does something dangerous." Toby tensed. "Stop him." Naya's eyes glowed faintly. "If he is a threat to our mission, we remove the threat." Toby took a step back. "No. We can't hurt him." Naya studied him for a long moment. "You still believe they can be reasoned with?" Toby swallowed hard. "Some of them can." Naya's lips pressed together. "Then we will do it your way. But if he moves against us, I won't stand by and let him destroy what we are fighting for." Toby didn't like the way she said that, but he nodded. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." Naya turned to the river. "I have something to show you." Toby frowned. "What is it?" She lifted a hand, and the water around her began to ripple. Slowly, something began to rise from beneath the surface. A figure. At first, it looked like a drowned body, limp and lifeless. But as it emerged, Toby realized it was something else entirely. A mermaid, older than any he had seen before. Her skin was lined with deep ridges, as if carved by the water itself. Her eyes glowed a milky white. She was ancient. Powerful. "This is Elder Oma," Naya said. "One of the last keepers of the river's magic." Toby took a cautious step forward. "Why is she here?" The elder's lips moved, her voice a rasping whisper. "To test you." Toby's stomach clenched. "Test me?" Naya nodded. "She needs to know if you are worthy of the river's trust." Toby's pulse pounded. "And if I fail?" Naya's expression was unreadable. "Then the river will decide your fate." Toby stood knee-deep in the water, his heart hammering in his chest. Elder Oma's gaze bore into him, unreadable and ancient. The river around them had gone eerily still. The air was heavy, charged with unseen energy. "What do I have to do?" Toby asked, his voice steady despite the fear curling inside him. The elder raised a withered hand. "The river has its own ways of choosing allies," she rasped. "You must prove yourself worthy." Toby swallowed. "How?" The elder didn't answer. Instead, the river shifted. Suddenly, a force wrapped around Toby's legs, yanking him downward. He gasped as water swallowed him, dragging him beneath the surface. He thrashed, but the current was relentless. Darkness surrounded him. He couldn't breathe. Couldn't see. A voice echoed in his mind. "Do you truly seek to save us? Or do you seek to save yourself?" Toby's lungs burned. Panic clawed at his throat. "Would you give everything for the river?" His body screamed for air. "Even your own life?" Toby's vision blurred. The weight of the water pressed against him, crushing, suffocating. Then, he stopped struggling. He let go. Not because he wanted to die, but because he trusted the river. And in that moment, the water released him. Toby shot to the surface, gasping for air. The elder's glowing eyes watched him. Then, slowly, she nodded. "The river has chosen." Toby coughed, chest heaving. "What does that mean?" Naya moved closer. "It means you are one of us now." Toby looked down, startled to see his hands glowing faintly. Something had changed. Something inside him. And for the first time, he truly understood. He wasn't just fighting for the river anymore. The river was now part of him. Toby returned to the village just before dawn, his body exhausted, his mind spinning. Something inside him had shifted. He could still feel the river's pulse beneath his skin, as if the water was alive inside him. But he had no time to think about it. Because as soon as he reached his hut, Jero was waiting for him. Toby's stomach dropped. Jero's arms were crossed, his face twisted in triumph. "I knew it," Jero hissed. "I knew you were working with them." Toby forced himself to stay calm. "You don't understand, Jero." "Oh, I understand just fine," Jero spat. "You've betrayed us. Siding with the creatures that have haunted our village for generations." Toby's hands clenched into fists. "They're not the enemy, Jero. The real enemy is the dam, the government that's lying to us." Jero shook his head. "No. You are the liar." Toby's breath caught as he noticed something in Jero's hand. A knife. Jero took a slow step forward. "I should have stopped you sooner." Toby's mind raced. He had no weapon. No time. And then Jero lunged. Toby barely dodged, stumbling back as the blade slashed through the air. "Jero, listen to me," Toby pleaded. But Jero wasn't listening. He swung again, faster this time. Toby ducked, but he was too slow. Pain exploded in his arm as the blade sliced through his skin. He gasped, clutching the wound. Blood dripped onto the ground. Jero smirked. "I'll tell the chief what you are. And when I do..." He turned to leave. Toby's heart pounded. If Jero told the village, everything would be over. Naya would be hunted. The river would be lost. He had one chance. One chance to stop him. Toby clenched his fists, feeling the river's energy still pulsing in his veins. And for the first time, he called upon its power. Toby's heart pounded as Jero turned to leave. The village would know everything soon. They would come for Naya. They would destroy the river. He couldn't let that happen. Something inside him surged, a force stronger than fear, stronger than pain. His blood hummed with the pulse of the river itself. Without thinking, he reached out. Water answered his call. A powerful stream burst from the ground, swirling like a living thing. It wrapped around Jero's legs, yanking him off his feet. Jero gasped as he was lifted into the air, struggling, twisting, helpless. Toby's own breath hitched. He had done that. The power coursed through him, wild and untamed. The river had given him its strength. But what was he supposed to do with it? Jero's eyes widened in terror. "Toby, what are you?" The water tightened. Jero thrashed, coughing as the liquid swirled around his throat. Toby felt the power waiting, wanting, urging him to finish what had been started. Jero had attacked him. Jero had threatened Naya. Jero would destroy everything. All Toby had to do was let the river take him. One thought. One push. And it would be over. Jero saw it in his eyes. "Toby, please." The plea hit Toby like a slap. The water trembled, hesitating. Jero was a fool. Jero was dangerous. But was he worth losing himself? Toby's breath came hard and fast. His fingers trembled. Then he let go. The water crashed to the ground, releasing Jero in a coughing, sputtering heap. Toby staggered back, chest heaving. He had almost killed him. Jero looked up, eyes filled with fear. Not hatred. Not anger. Just fear. Toby felt sick. "Stay away," Jero rasped. You're not human anymore." Toby's stomach twisted, but he said nothing. Jero scrambled to his feet and ran. Toby didn't stop him this time. But as he stood there, his arms still bleeding, his heart still racing, he realized the truth. Jero wouldn't stop. And next time, Toby might not be able to hold back. Naya met him at the river, her gaze sharp the moment she saw him. "You're hurt." Toby looked down at the gash on his arm, barely feeling the pain anymore. "It's nothing." Naya wasn't convinced. She took his hand gently, murmuring something under her breath. The water curled around his wound, cool and soothing. Within moments, the pain faded, the skin sealing itself as if the injury had never been there. Toby exhaled. "I didn't know you could do that." Naya's eyes met his. "You can do it too. If you let yourself." Toby swallowed. "The river, it gave me something. Power." Naya nodded. "It chose you." Toby's fists clenched. "I almost killed Jero." Naya tilted her head. "Why didn't you?" Toby hesitated. "Because I couldn't." Naya studied him for a long moment, then sighed. "That is why the river chose you." Toby didn't know if that made him feel better or worse. "What happens now?" he asked. Naya's expression darkened. "Jero will return to the village. He will tell them everything." Toby's stomach dropped. Naya's voice was soft but firm. "If they come for me, you must not stand in their way." Toby's head snapped up. "What?" "No. I won't let them take you." Naya's fingers brushed against his. "You are more important than me now." Toby shook his head. "That's not true." Naya's eyes shimmered with something he couldn't quite name. "The river's power flows through you, Toby. If you fall, the river falls with you." Toby didn't care about the river. He didn't care about the dam, or the village, or the battle between humans and mermaids. He just cared about her. "I won't let them take you," he said again, voice firm. Naya's gaze softened. "Then we must be ready." The village was waiting for him when he returned. Torches lit the darkness, their flickering light casting eerie shadows across angry faces. And at the front, Jero. His eyes burned with hatred now. The fear was gone, replaced by something sharper. "You see," Jero shouted, pointing at Toby. "He's been bewitched." Murmurs spread through the crowd. "He consorts with the creatures. He's cursed. He must be stopped." Toby raised his hands. "Listen to me." But the chief stepped forward, face unreadable. "Is it true?" Toby hesitated. Then, slowly, he nodded. The crowd gasped. Jero smirked. "You see. He's betrayed us." Toby took a deep breath. "I haven't betrayed anyone. I am trying to save you." The villagers didn't look convinced. Jero turned to the chief. "He used magic against me. He tried to kill me." The chief's gaze flickered toward Toby's arm, where the wound had been. Then, his face hardened. "Toby," he said quietly, "you are no longer one of us." Toby's breath caught. "Chief." The chief's voice was firm. "You must leave this village. You are banished." A stunned silence followed. Toby's world cracked. "Chief, please," he tried again. But the old man looked away. Jero smirked. "If you return, we will kill you." Toby's blood ran cold. His people. His home. Gone. He was alone now. Except, a soft voice whispered in his mind, "You are never alone." The river was still with him. And so was Naya. Toby clenched his fists. If the village had turned against him, then he would have to fight for the river himself, no matter the cost. Toby walked into the night, his steps heavy, his heart even heavier. The village lights faded behind him, swallowed by darkness. He had lost everything. His home. His people. His name. Banished. If he returned, they would kill him. His feet carried him toward the river, to the only place left for him. The night air was thick, humid, pressing against his skin like a weight. The jungle whispered around him, crickets chirping, leaves rustling, unseen eyes watching. But none of it frightened him. Not anymore. The real monsters weren't in the dark. They were in the village. Toby clenched his fists. He should have seen this coming. Jairo had made sure the village turned against him. And now, they would come for the river. For Naya. He wouldn't let them. Toby pushed forward, his path guided by the soft hum of the water. And as he approached the riverbank, he wasn't surprised to see her waiting for him. Naya. Her silver hair shimmered under the moonlight, her violet eyes searching his face. "They cast you out," she said softly. Toby exhaled. "Yes." Naya tilted her head. "And yet, you are still standing." Toby let out a bitter chuckle. "I don't feel like I am." Naya moved closer, her fingers brushing his. "You are stronger than you think." Toby looked at her, really looked at her. The way her hair floated like silk, the way her presence made the night feel warmer, safer. She had lost everything too. And yet, she was still standing. Toby took a deep breath. "The village is coming." Naya's expression darkened. "Then we must be ready." Toby nodded. No more waiting. It was time to fight. For the river. For Naya. For everything. Naya led him to the heart of the river. Deep beneath the surface, where no human had ever gone. Toby followed without hesitation. The water should have crushed him, drowned him. But it didn't. The river had claimed him now. His lungs burned, but not from lack of air. From power. The deeper they went, the more he could feel it, the pulse of the water, the ancient magic flowing through it. And then, they arrived. The coven. Hundreds of mermaids, their scales shimmering like liquid moonlight. Some were young, barely older than children. Others were ancient, their eyes carrying centuries of wisdom. All of them turned as Naya and Toby emerged. A hush fell over the gathering. Naya lifted her chin. "The humans are coming." A ripple of unease spread through the group. "They mean to destroy us," she continued. "To cage us. To dry the river until nothing remains." A murmur of anger rose. Toby stepped forward. "I know you have no reason to trust me," he said. "I am human. But I am not your enemy." Some of the mermaids scoffed. Others simply watched. Toby's voice hardened. "I was cast out for standing with you. I bled for this river. And I will fight for it." Silence. Then, the crowd parted. A figure emerged. Elder Oma. Her milky white eyes glowed in the darkness. "You wish to fight for the river?" Toby met her gaze. "Yes." Elder Oma studied him for a long moment. Then, she turned to the coven. "The river has chosen him." A ripple of energy passed through the gathering. Some murmured in approval. Others still looked skeptical. Naya stepped beside Toby. "He is one of us." Another voice rang out. "Then let him prove it." Toby turned toward the speaker. A massive merman with jagged scars running down his chest. His eyes burned with distrust. "If he is truly one of us," the warrior growled, "then let him take the trial of the depths." A collective murmur spread through the coven. Naya's eyes widened. That is madness. The warrior smirked. If he survives, he earns our loyalty. If he fails... He shrugged. Toby's pulse pounded. Another test. Another battle. He should have been afraid. But instead, he smiled. Then let's begin. The mermaids led him to the deepest part of the river. A trench so dark it looked like the mouth of a beast. The water was different here. Thicker. Hungrier. Naya gripped his wrist. You don't have to do this. Toby met her gaze. Yes, I do. Naya hesitated, then nodded. Then don't let the darkness take you. Toby exhaled and plunged into the depths. The water swallowed him whole. Silence. Then, something moved. Toby turned. Shapes slithered in the blackness. Glowing eyes. Twisting bodies. He wasn't alone down here. The things that lived in the deep had no loyalty to the mermaids above. And now, they had found him. A voice whispered in his mind. Drown. Toby's vision blurred. His chest tightened. He could feel himself sinking, pulled deeper and deeper. No. He clenched his fists. He was not a prisoner. Not anymore. The river was his. And he would not be broken. With a roar, Toby thrust his hands forward. Water obeyed. A powerful current exploded around him, forcing back the creatures in the dark. They screeched, slithering away into the abyss. Toby gasped for air. And then, the water lifted him, carrying him upward. Back to the surface. Back to Naya. He broke through the water, chest heaving. Silence. Then, a roar of approval from the coven. Naya pulled him close, her eyes wide. You did it. Toby smirked. Told you. The warrior stepped forward, nodding in respect. You are one of us now. Toby turned to the gathering. The village was coming. The war was coming. And now, the river was ready. The river hummed with energy. For the first time in centuries, the mermaids prepared for war. Toby stood beside Naya as the warriors of the coven gathered before Elder Oma. The glow of bioluminescent plants illuminated the underwater chamber, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Elder Oma's ancient gaze swept over the crowd. The humans are coming. A murmur spread through the mermaids. They have cast one of their own into exile, the elder continued, nodding toward Toby. And in doing so, they have sealed their fate. A merman with jagged scars across his chest stepped forward. It was Koro, the warrior who had challenged Toby. His muscles tensed with barely restrained fury. We should strike first. A chorus of agreement rippled through the gathering. They will burn the jungle. They will poison the water. They will not stop until we are gone. Toby stepped forward. Not all of them. The mermaids turned to him. Toby took a deep breath. There are people in the village who don't want this fight. The chief, he hesitated, remembering the look in the old man's eyes when he had cast him out. He doesn't want bloodshed. But Jero is stirring fear. Koro scoffed. Then he is weak. And weakness has no place here. Toby's jaw tightened. Strength isn't just about fighting. Koro's lip curled. You sound like a human. Toby stepped closer. I am human. And I am also one of you. He let the power of the river rise inside him, and the water around his feet shimmered in response. That means I see what you don't. Koro narrowed his eyes. And what is that? Toby exhaled. A war with the village will cost us. Even if we win, they will return with more men, more weapons. He looked around, meeting the gaze of each mermaid. But if we show them the truth, if we make them see the power of the river, maybe we can stop this before it's too late." Silence. Then Elder Oma spoke. "You wish to offer them peace?" Toby nodded. Koro let out a harsh laugh. "Peace is for fools." Elder Oma turned her sightless eyes to him. "And war is for the blind." Koro stiffened. Elder Oma faced Toby once more. "What do you propose?" Toby took a steady breath. "Let me speak to the chief. One last time." Naya's fingers brushed against his. He knew she wanted to tell him to be careful, to stay, to forget about the village that had betrayed him. But she didn't. Instead, she nodded. Because she knew. This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about something bigger. The river. The village. The future. And he would not let it end in bloodshed. Toby walked through the jungle with his heart pounding. The village would not welcome him. If they saw him, they might kill him on sight. But he had to try. He reached the outskirts of the village and crouched behind the thick leaves of a baobab tree. The village was more alive than usual, people sharpening machetes, stacking bags of dry grass, carrying buckets of oil. They were preparing for war. Toby's stomach clenched. Jero was poisoning their minds. He needed to find the chief. Moving carefully, he slipped past the outer huts, keeping to the shadows. Then, "Toby." A voice behind him. He spun around. It was Ebony. His childhood friend. Her eyes widened in shock. "You're alive." Toby nodded. "I need to speak to the chief." Ebony hesitated. "He's in the meeting hut." "But Toby," she swallowed. "Jero has turned the whole village against you. If they see you—" "I know," Toby said. "But I have to try." Ebony glanced around, then grabbed his hand. "Follow me." They moved quickly through the narrow paths between the huts, avoiding the groups of warriors gathered near the fires. When they reached the chief's hut, Ebony pulled back the curtain. "Go. Quickly." Toby slipped inside. The chief sat before the fire, his old hands gripping his staff. His gaze lifted as Toby entered, and his expression darkened. "You should not be here." Toby took a deep breath. "I came to stop this war." The chief's eyes flickered. "It is already too late." "It's not." Toby stepped forward. "You don't have to fight. The river is not your enemy." The chief sighed. "You do not understand, Toby. The dam." "The dam will destroy everything," Toby interrupted. "And you know it." The chief looked away. Toby's voice softened. "I know why you agreed to this. The government promised wealth, security. But the river gives life to the land. If it dries up, there will be no village left to protect." The chief's hands tightened around his staff. "The mermaids don't want war," Toby pressed. "But if you attack them, they will defend themselves." Silence. Then, a voice from behind him. "So you bring the monster's words into this hut?" Toby turned. Jero. His eyes burned with triumph. And behind him, warriors. Spears raised. Toby's heart slammed against his ribs. Jero smirked. "You should have stayed in the river, traitor." Toby braced himself as the warriors stepped forward. Then the chief's voice rang out. "Enough." Jero froze. The chief stood, his gaze heavy with something unreadable. "Lower your weapons." The warriors hesitated. Jero's face twisted. "Chief." "I said lower them." Reluctantly, the warriors obeyed. Jero clenched his fists. "You're making a mistake." The chief ignored him. His gaze stayed on Toby. If you truly believe peace is possible, then prove it. Toby's breath caught. The chief stepped forward. Bring the mermaids here. Toby stiffened. What? The chief's eyes held his. If they wish for peace, let them stand before the village. Toby hesitated. Could he convince Naya to do this? Would the coven agree? Or was he leading them into a trap? Jairo's smirk returned. This is a waste of time. We should. The chief turned to him sharply. Be silent. Jairo's jaw locked. Toby exhaled, his mind racing. This was the only chance. One meeting. One moment. And everything could change. He met the chief's gaze. I'll bring them. Then, he turned and slipped back into the night. Back to the river. Back to Naya. Toby ran through the jungle, his breath sharp in his throat. He had done the impossible. The village chief had given him a chance. A single chance. To prove that peace was possible. If Naya and the mermaids came willingly, the village would listen. But if anything went wrong, Toby swallowed hard. Jairo would make sure there was blood in the water. The river came into view, its surface smooth as glass beneath the moonlight. Toby barely slowed his steps as he splashed into the shallows. Naya, he called, his voice urgent. Naya, I need you. The water rippled. Then, she rose. Naya's silver hair flowed around her like liquid silk, her violet eyes meeting his with quiet intensity. You return quickly. Toby took a deep breath. The chief has agreed to talk. Naya's brows lifted slightly. Talk. Toby nodded. He wants to meet you. All of you. A hush fell over the river. The other mermaids emerged, their eyes wary. Naya studied his face. And you trust this? Toby hesitated. I trust the chief. But Jairo. He won't accept peace. A murmur spread through the mermaids. Koro stepped forward, his muscles tense. It's a trap. Toby shook his head. It's not. But if we don't go, the village will attack. Naya turned toward Elder Oma. The ancient mermaid floated forward, her blind eyes unreadable. The river has never bowed to men before. Toby clenched his fists. Then let them see that they have no reason to fear you. The elder was silent. Then, she nodded. The river will answer. Toby exhaled in relief. But as he turned toward Naya, her expression remained troubled. He reached for her hand. Naya. Her fingers curled around his, but she said nothing. Because they both knew. This would change everything. The village gathered in the open clearing, torches flickering, voices whispering. They had come expecting war. Instead, they were about to witness something no human had seen before. The chief stood in the center of the clearing, his face grim. Jairo stood close by, his hand resting on the hilt of his blade. Then, a ripple. A tremor in the ground. The river stirred. And then, the mermaids rose. They came not as monsters. Not as demons. But as something greater. They moved with the grace of the tides, their hair flowing like waves, their scales shimmering beneath the torchlight. Naya led them, her violet eyes glowing in the dark. The villagers gasped. Some took a step back. Others clutched their weapons. Toby moved forward, his pulse hammering. No one attacks, he warned. We are here to talk. The chief raised a hand. The warriors hesitated. Then, Naya spoke. Her voice was like the river itself, soft, powerful, eternal. You call us demons. But we are only the keepers of the water. The water that has fed your land, your children, your people for generations. A ripple of unease spread through the crowd. The chief's eyes darkened. Then why have you taken our men? Naya's gaze did not waver. Because they threatened the balance. They sought to harm what they did not understand. A woman's voice rose from the crowd. My husband never returned from the river. Naya's expression softened. Not all who enter the water are taken. Some simply do not return. Another murmur. Jairo's voice rang out, sharp as a blade. And what of the dam? What will you do when it is built? Naya's eyes flashed. The dam must not stand. The chief's expression tightened. And if it does? Naya was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. Then the river will reclaim what is hers. A hush fell over the clearing. The chief's grip tightened on his staff. Is that a threat? Naya tilted her head. It is a truth. Toby's chest tightened. This was the moment. The mermaids would not bow. The village would not surrender. But could there still be peace? The chief exhaled. Then we are at a crossroads. Jairo stepped forward, his voice sharp with anger. There is no crossroads. There is no peace with monsters. Toby's pulse pounded. Jairo turned to the crowd, his voice rising. Do you not see? They would see our homes destroyed. They have already taken our men. They. His hand shot toward his blade. Toby's heart lurched. No. But before Jairo could strike, the river moved. Water surged from the ground, wrapping around his wrist. The crowd gasped as the water twisted, yanking Jairo's blade away. The river had spoken. Jairo stumbled back, his face pale. The chief turned to Naya, his expression unreadable. Then let us make a bargain. Toby held his breath. Naya studied the old man for a long moment. Then she nodded. The war had not come today. But the battle was far from over. The village held its breath. The mermaids stood like living statues, their scales shimmering in the torchlight. The river whispered around them, restless, waiting. The chief met Naya's glowing eyes, his weathered face unreadable. Then he spoke. If you do not wish for war, then tell us, what do you want? Naya's gaze did not waver. We want the river to remain free. A murmur spread through the villagers. The chief's brow furrowed. And if we refuse? Naya's voice was steady. Then the river will not suffer alone. Toby's stomach clenched. She wasn't threatening them, she was warning them. The river's wrath was not a choice. It was a certainty. The chief was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to his people. The dam was meant to bring prosperity, he said. To give us more than the river ever could. But the water has fed our fields for generations. It has filled our wells. We have lived by its mercy. Jairo's voice cut through the hush like a blade. And it has taken our men. Naya's violet eyes flickered. The river does not take. It only calls. Some do not return. Jairo's fists clenched. Enough of this. He turned to the villagers. You all stand here listening to a creature that should not even exist. This is not a bargain. This is surrender. The villagers shifted uneasily. Jairo's lip curled. If we give in to their demands, what next? Will we bow to spirits in the forest? Will we let the wind tell us when to plant our crops? We are men, not slaves to the old ways. Toby stepped forward, his voice firm. The old ways have kept this village alive. Jairo sneered. You would say that. You're no longer one of us. The villagers turned toward the chief, waiting. For a moment, the old man said nothing. Then he nodded. The river will remain free. Gasps. Murmurs. Jairo's face twisted in rage. You cannot be serious. The chief raised his hand. Enough. His voice was steady, unshaken. I have made my decision. Jairo's eyes darkened. Then you are a fool. Toby's breath caught as he saw it. Jairo's hand reaching for his blade. The torchlight gleamed against the steel. Jairo lunged. Straight for Naya. Toby moved before he could think. His body slammed into Jairo's, knocking him aside. The blade sliced through the air, missing Naya by inches. The village erupted in shouts. Warriors rushed forward, seizing Jairo's arms. He thrashed, eyes wild with fury. You would side with them. You would betray your own kind. The chief's face was grim. You are the only traitor here. Jairo spat at his feet. Then you are weak. The chief's gaze hardened. Take him away. The warriors dragged Jairo into the night. His voice rang out, sharp and furious. This is not over. Then he was gone. Silence. The villagers turned to their chief, waiting. The chief exhaled slowly, then met Naya's gaze once more. The dam will not be built. A sigh of relief rippled through the mermaids. Naya dipped her head. Then the river will remain your ally. The tension in the air eased. But Toby knew. This was only the beginning. The mermaids left the village that night. Toby walked beside Naya as they slipped through the jungle, the moonlight weaving silver patterns through the trees. You were willing to fight for me, she murmured. Toby glanced at her. Of course I was. Naya's gaze held his. Even if it meant losing your place in the village. Toby hesitated. Because he had lost it. Even with the chief's acceptance, he could not stay. The village would always see him differently now. He swallowed. I belong here. Naya's fingers brushed against his. With me. Toby exhaled. With the river. She smiled. But something still felt off. Toby glanced over his shoulder. The jungle was quiet. Too quiet. Naya frowned. What is it? Toby's muscles tensed. Something was watching them. The river loomed ahead, dark and endless. The water rippled. And then, a figure stepped from the shadows. Toby froze. Jairo. His clothes were torn, his face streaked with dirt. His eyes burned with something wilder than before. But he was not alone. Figures emerged from the trees, men in strange armor, carrying weapons unlike anything the village had ever seen. Toby's stomach dropped. Soldiers. Jairo's voice was cold. You thought you won, didn't you? He gestured to the men behind him. But the government doesn't take orders from old chiefs. The dam will be built. Toby's hands clenched into fists. You don't know what you're doing. Jairo's smirk was sharp as a knife. Oh, I know exactly what I'm doing. He turned to the soldiers. Kill them. The night exploded into chaos. Arrows sliced through the air. Naya's eyes flared. The river roared. And the battle began. The first arrow sliced through the night air. Toby barely had time to react before Naya yanked him backward, her grip firm but desperate. The arrow struck the ground where he had stood just moments before. More followed. The soldiers advanced, their boots crunching against the damp jungle earth. Jairo stood at the front, his smirk growing as he watched the mermaids recoil toward the water. Toby's mind raced. This isn't just an attack, this is a slaughter. Jairo had come prepared. The torches burned hotter. Their weapons gleamed with something sharper than iron. These weren't just simple village warriors, these were government soldiers, armed with metal and fire. Toby turned to Naya. Get to the river. Naya's violet eyes flashed. And leave you. Before he could answer, another arrow shot past. Naya let out a sharp cry as it grazed her shoulder. Toby's blood turned cold. Jairo's laughter rang through the night. "You should have let me kill her in the village, Toby. Now you'll watch her die anyway." Rage burned through Toby's chest. But before he could move, the river roared. A wall of water surged from the depths, crashing into the soldiers like a living beast. It swept them off their feet, dragging them toward the churning current. Toby barely managed to keep his footing as the jungle floor turned to mud beneath him. Jairo shouted something, but his voice was swallowed by the river's fury. The mermaids had awakened. From the water, shapes emerged, figures with glowing eyes, sharp fangs, and the full wrath of the river behind them. Toby had never seen them like this before. They were no longer just protectors. They were warriors. Naya's face was pale, but her jaw was set. "They will not take our home." Toby nodded, his heart pounding. "Then let's end this." He grabbed a fallen soldier's weapon, a heavy wooden staff, and turned back to the battlefield. The war for the river had begun. The jungle was chaos. The river twisted and coiled, pulling men into its depths. Arrows sliced through the air, but they found no targets, only water. The mermaids fought with strength unlike anything Toby had seen before. Koro lunged at a soldier, his claws raking across armor, sending the men sprawling. Another mermaid dragged a screaming attacker beneath the surface, his cries cutting off in a single, gurgling breath. But the soldiers were strong. They had torches. Fire. And fire did not fear the river. A flaming arrow streaked through the sky, embedding itself into a tree near the water's edge. The flames caught instantly, spreading like a hungry beast. Toby's chest tightened. "They're trying to smoke them out." Jairo stood behind the soldiers, watching, his arms crossed. His face was calm. Too calm. Toby's stomach twisted. He's waiting for something. Then, a deafening boom shook the ground. Toby staggered. Something in the river had exploded. Water shot into the sky, raining down in heavy droplets. A strange, oily scent filled the air. Toby's breath caught. "They've poisoned the water." The mermaids recoiled. Naya gasped, clutching her throat. The water beneath her shimmered with something unnatural, something deadly. Jairo's laughter rang through the night. "You really thought we'd fight you on your own terms?" Toby's hands clenched into fists. The soldiers weren't here to win a battle. They were here to end the war before it even started. Toby turned to Naya. "We have to stop them." Her breathing was ragged. The poison was already spreading. Toby's heart pounded. He had to do something. He had to act. Before it was too late. Toby sprinted through the chaos, his mind racing. The river was dying. The mermaids were weakening. And Jairo was still standing, untouched, in the middle of it all. Toby knew what he had to do. He had to end this. Now. Gripping the staff tightly, he launched himself toward Jairo. Jairo barely had time to react before Toby slammed into him, knocking them both to the ground. They rolled through the mud, fists flying. Jairo was strong, stronger than Toby remembered. But Toby had something Jairo didn't. He had the river. The ground beneath them trembled. The water surged. Jairo's face twisted in fury. "You think she'll save you?" Toby drove his fist into Jairo's ribs. "I don't need saving." Jairo grunted, but he didn't stop fighting. His knee shot up, catching Toby in the gut. Pain exploded through Toby's ribs. Jairo shoved him off, grabbing his fallen blade. "You should have stayed in the village, Toby." Toby barely had time to dodge as the blade swung toward his neck. Then, a flash of silver. Naya. She moved like a phantom, her injured arm hanging limp at her side, but her eyes burning with fury. Her claws raked across Jairo's face. He screamed, stumbling backward. Naya stood between him and Toby, her chest rising and falling. "You do not belong here." Jairo's eyes darkened. Blood dripped from his cheek. But he wasn't done. Not yet. He reached for something at his belt. A small, glass vial filled with dark liquid. Toby's breath caught. Another poison. Jairo's smile was cruel. "If I can't have the river, no one will." And he threw it. Straight into the water. The vial shattered. Darkness spread through the river like ink. Naya let out a strangled cry, falling to her knees. The other mermaids writhed, their bodies convulsing. Toby's mind screamed. No. The river was dying. Naya was dying. Jairo had won. Unless... Toby didn't think. Didn't hesitate. He dove into the water. The moment Toby hit the water, the poison wrapped around him like an icy grip. The river, once alive, once filled with whispers and light, was suffocating. His lungs burned. His vision blurred. The dark liquid spread like ink in the current, curling into strange shapes, moving like something alive. Toby could feel the river fighting back. But it was losing. He reached for Naya. She was sinking. Her violet eyes fluttered open, dazed, as if she barely recognized him. Toby. Her voice echoed in his mind, weak, fading. "No," he gasped, wrapping his arms around her. "Stay with me." A sharp pain seared through his chest. The poison was inside him now, curling through his veins, clawing at his heart. His strength was fading. The river around him trembled, as if it knew. As if it was morning. Toby's body went still. And then... a whisper. Not from the surface. Not from Naya. But from the river itself. "Toby." The voice was deep. Endless. Older than time. His mind swam. He saw flashes of something ancient, figures moving through the water, spirits that had lived in the depths long before the village, long before the world had names. They were watching him. Waiting. "Toby," the voice called again. "The river has chosen you." The poison pressed against him, trying to pull him under. But something else was rising inside him. Something stronger. Toby gasped, his body convulsing. His skin burned. Light rippled through the water. A force, old, powerful, surged into him, filling his lungs, his heart, his soul. And suddenly, he was the river. Toby's eyes snapped open. The pain was gone. The poison no longer burned in his veins. He could see everything, the currents, the fish, the roots of trees stretching into the depths. The river was alive inside him. And it was angry. Jairo's poison still floated in the water, spreading, infecting everything. But now, Toby knew how to stop it. He closed his eyes. Move. The water obeyed. The river twisted, curled, and surged, pulling the darkness into itself. The poison fought back, thick and venomous, but it was no match for the force Toby had become. With a final pulse, the water crushed the darkness. The poison dissolved. The river roared back to life. Naya gasped. Toby turned to her. Her eyes widened. "Toby," she whispered. What are you?" Toby looked down at his hands. They were glowing. And the river whispered, "You are one of us now." On the surface, the battle still raged. The mermaids had weakened, but they were not broken. Koro and the others fought with the last of their strength, driving back the soldiers. But Jairo still stood. Watching. Waiting. His plan had failed, but his face was still twisted in a knowing smirk. Until The river exploded. A massive wave surged upward, crashing over the battlefield. The soldiers stumbled, slipping in the mud. The torches flickered. And from the water, Toby rose. Gasps echoed through the air. His skin shimmered, his eyes glowing like the river itself. Jairo's smirk faltered. What? Toby stepped forward. The water moved with him. Jairo's hand reached for his blade. You should have drowned. Toby didn't blink. You should have left. Jairo lunged. But he never reached Toby. The water rose, fast as lightning, strong as stone, and snatched him from the ground. Jairo's scream was lost in the roar of the river. The water twisted around him, holding him in its grasp. For the first time, Jairo looked afraid. Toby stared at him, heart pounding. You poisoned this river, he said. You tried to destroy it. Jairo struggled. You think you can stop progress? His voice was hoarse, desperate. The government will come. They will send more men. They will. Toby raised his hand. The water clenched around Jairo. He gasped, choking on the river's grip. Toby's voice was quiet, but it carried across the battlefield. There is no progress without balance. Jairo's eyes widened. And then, the river pulled him under. Silence. The battlefield stood still. The soldiers, those who had not been taken by the river, stared at Toby in horror. And then, they ran. Into the jungle. Away from the river. Away from the battle they had lost. Toby lowered his hand. The water settled. The night was still. Koro let out a slow breath. It's over. Toby turned to Naya. She was watching him, her gaze searching, uncertain. He stepped toward her. She reached for his hand. But before their fingers could touch, Toby gasped. His body shook. The glow in his skin flickered. The river rushed through his mind, his veins, his soul. Something was changing. Naya's eyes widened. Toby. Toby's vision blurred. He stumbled. And the river swallowed him whole. The world twisted. Toby's breath caught as the river swallowed him. The water was no longer just water, it was alive, endless, whispering. It curled around him like unseen hands, pulling him deeper, deeper, deeper. His vision darkened. His lungs should have been burning. But they weren't. He could still breathe. Or, was he breathing at all? His fingers curled, reaching for something, solid ground, air, Naya. But there was nothing. Only water. And then, a flicker of light. Soft. Silver. Moving like a flame beneath the waves. It grew brighter. Closer. Toby blinked, his heart pounding. A shape emerged from the glow. A figure. Not Naya. Not a mermaid. Something older. Something ancient. It had the form of a man, but its body was made of water, its eyes like swirling whirlpools. Its voice rumbled through the depths, shaking the riverbed itself. Toby. Toby's throat tightened. Who are you? The figure tilted its head. We are the river. The current trembled. The light pulsed. Toby of the land, the voice echoed, you have taken the river into yourself. Now, the river takes you. Toby's breath quickened. Takes me where? The figure did not answer. Instead, the water rushed into his chest. Toby's back arched. A burning sensation surged through him, not painful, but overwhelming, as if his very being was being rewritten. Memories not his own flooded his mind. He saw flashes of the river through the ages, when it was first born, when the mermaids were young, when humans had not yet learned to shape the land. He saw all of it. And in that moment, Toby understood. He was no longer just a man. He was part of something bigger. Something eternal. Naya dived after him. The river was quiet now, calm, but she knew better. Something had taken him. Something powerful. Her heart pounded as she swam deeper, searching, calling his name. Toby. No response. Only the silence of the deep. Her fingers clenched. No, she whispered. I won't lose you. And then, a pulse shook the water. Naya gasped. A wave of energy burst from the depths, rippling outward. The river shuddered, as if it had just woken from a long sleep. Then, a figure began to rise from below. Naya's breath caught. It was Toby. But he was different. His skin shimmered, his veins glowing like flowing water. His eyes, once warm brown, were now an impossible blue, swirling like whirlpools. The river had changed him. He was one of them now. Naya reached for him, but for the first time, she hesitated. Was he still Toby? Or had the river taken him completely? Toby's feet touched the riverbed. For a long moment, he stood still. Then, his eyes met Naya's. Her voice was barely a whisper. Toby. His chest rose and fell, slow, steady. His voice, when it came, was deeper. Richer. I'm here. Relief flooded Naya's face. But it was quickly followed by fear. Because something was wrong. Toby felt different. Not just in his body. In his soul. The river was inside him now. He could hear its whispers. Its needs. And it was telling him something. Something terrible. The war wasn't over. The soldiers had left. Jairo was gone. But more would come. The river knew this. It had seen it before. And it would happen again. Unless... Toby's hands clenched. His breath came faster. The river whispered, we must make them fear us. Naya's eyes widened. Toby, what are you thinking? He turned to her. The glow in his eyes flickered. And for the first time, she wasn't sure if the man standing before her was the same one she had fallen in love with. The night was silent. The jungle, once filled with the sounds of battle, was still. The mermaids floated near the surface, watching, waiting. Toby stepped out of the water. His body still felt like his own, but different. Lighter. Stronger. The river whispered inside him, its voice a steady hum. It had given him power. And it wanted something in return. Toby turned to the mermaids. We can't let them come back, he said. Koro frowned. We sent them running. We won. Toby's jaw tightened. No. They'll return. More will come. And next time, they won't just bring soldiers. He turned to the village, his mind racing. We have to show them. We have to make them fear the river. Naya touched his arm. Toby, her voice was gentle. That's not who you are. But Toby wasn't so sure anymore. His fingers curled, and the river responded, a ripple of power moving through the air, through the earth. He could feel it now. The strength of the water. The weight of its history. And for the first time, he wasn't afraid of it. He was afraid of himself. The village of Doko was quiet. Its people huddled in their homes, whispering of what had happened by the river. The soldiers had left. But fear remained. And in the darkness, Toby stood at the edge of the trees, watching. He could hear them. The village elder spoke in hushed tones. The river is angry, he said. We have angered the spirits. Another voice, fearful, desperate. What do we do? A pause. Then, "We pray." Toby's fingers clenched. Would prayers stop the dam? Would prayers stop the government from coming back? Would prayers save the river? No. The river didn't need prayers. It needed action. It needed vengeance. The whispers inside him grew louder. Make them afraid. Make them listen. Toby took a step forward. Then another. And in the village, the people turned. They saw him. And for the first time, they did not see Toby. They saw something else. Something powerful. Something they had never seen before. And they fell to their knees. Toby stood still as the villagers fell to their knees. Their eyes were wide, their faces pale in the moonlight. He could hear their hearts pounding. Smell their fear, thick in the air. For the first time, the people of Doko truly saw him. Not as a government man. Not as a stranger. But as something else. Something more. Toby's chest rose and fell slowly. The river whispered inside him, humming through his veins like a second heartbeat. They know what you are now. They will never challenge you again. His fingers twitched. The water at his feet moved, swirling gently, responding to his unspoken command. The village elder, Baba Ajani, crawled forward on his hands and knees. His old body trembled, but his voice, though weak, was steady. "Great Spirit," he whispered, forehead pressed into the dirt. "We did not know. We did not understand." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some villagers began to weep. "We beg for mercy," Baba Ajani continued. "We will do as you ask." Toby stared at him. Once, not long ago, he had been a man of science. A government worker sent to build a dam. Now, they were calling him a spirit. He had become what he never believed in. Was this what the river wanted? Toby's heart pounded. Something inside him was changing. And he didn't know if he could stop it. A gentle hand touched his arm. Toby turned. Naya stood beside him, her violet eyes shining. "Toby," she whispered. "Come back." His breath caught. Come back. Where had he gone? He looked down at his hands. They still looked like his own, 5 fingers, dark skin. But the power inside them, that was different. That was new. That was dangerous. The villagers trembled. They had already accepted what he had become. But Naya, she was still fighting for the man he used to be. Toby's chest tightened. Could he go back? Could he ignore the voice inside him? The river whispered. No. Toby clenched his fists. "No one will harm this river again," he said, his voice carrying through the village like rolling thunder. His words were final. A warning. A command. Baba Ajani nodded, his wrinkled hands shaking. "Yes, Great One." Toby exhaled slowly. The villagers had surrendered. But deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The village was eerily quiet. Fires had been put out. Doors had been locked. The people of Doko knew something had changed. They had felt it in the air, in the water, in the bones of the earth itself. No one spoke. No one dared to disturb the silence. Except Naya. She sat beside Toby at the river's edge, watching him carefully. "You scared them," she murmured. Toby stared at the water, his reflection shifting with the ripples. His glowing blue eyes stared back at him. "They should be scared," he said quietly. "They were going to let this river die." Naya's fingers curled into the sand. "That's not who you are." Toby's jaw tightened. She kept fighting for the men she had known. The men who had once belonged to the world of land and reason. But that man was slipping away. And Naya could feel it. "Toby," she whispered, voice softer now. "What did the river do to you?" Toby closed his eyes. Memories surged through him, the voices of the spirits, the ancient pulse of the water. He had become something new. Something that no longer fit in the world of men. And soon, he would have to make a choice. Just before dawn, the sound of marching shattered the silence. Toby's eyes snapped open. Naya gasped. The villagers screamed. Because in the distance, emerging from the jungle, torches in hand, the soldiers had returned. And this time, they weren't just men from Doko. This time, they carried the Nigerian flag. Toby's heart pounded. The government had sent reinforcements. The battle wasn't over. It had only just begun. The soldiers came in waves. More than before. More than Toby had ever seen. They carried guns. They carried fire. They had come to finish what Jero had started. Toby stepped forward, the river thrumming in his veins. They would not win. He would not let them. Naya grabbed his arm. "Toby, wait." He turned to her. She shook her head, eyes filled with desperation. "You're different now. If you fight them, you won't stop. You'll become." Toby pulled away. He already knew what he was becoming. And it was too late to stop it. The river had chosen him. And now, the river would fight. The air was thick with smoke. Torches burned in the soldiers' hands, their flames flickering like hungry spirits in the night. The villagers cowered in their homes, whispering prayers to whatever gods might listen. And Toby. He stood at the edge of the river, waiting. The water surged behind him, waves lapping at his heels. It knew what was coming. And so did he. The lead soldier stepped forward. His uniform was clean, crisp, different from Jero's men. This was no local militia. These were officials. Government men. His voice was hard as iron. "We're here to complete the project." Toby's jaw tightened. "The dam is dead." The soldier's face remained unreadable. "That's not your decision." Toby stepped forward. And the river moved with him. Water curled around his feet, rising like living vines. The soldiers saw it. Their hands tensed around their weapons. Fear flickered in their eyes. Good. They should be afraid. Toby's voice was steady. "Final. You will leave," he said. "Now." For a moment, no one moved. Then, the soldier raised his hand. And the guns cocked. The world seemed to freeze. Then, a single shot split the air. The bullet tore toward Toby's chest. But before it could reach him, the river rose. A wall of water surged up, swallowing the bullet midair. The force of it sent shock waves rippling through the earth, shaking the trees, knocking some of the soldiers off their feet. Gasps filled the night. The villagers stared. The soldiers staggered back. Toby exhaled slowly. He hadn't meant to do that. He hadn't even thought about it. The river had reacted on its own. Or had it reacted through him? The soldiers hesitated now. Their leader, however, did not. He gritted his teeth, lifting his weapon again. Fire. Gunfire exploded through the night. Toby didn't flinch. He raised his hands. And the river answered. Water erupted. It didn't flow, it attacked. Torrents of it surged from the river like striking serpents, twisting through the air, smashing into soldiers, sending them sprawling. The jungle trembled. Trees snapped under the force of the waves. Mud and water swallowed the ground, turning the battlefield into a churning swamp. Some soldiers tried to run. But the river would not let them. Toby moved like a storm, his feet barely touching the earth as he swept his arms forward, each movement sending another pulse through the water. Another wave. Another strike. The soldiers screamed as they were lifted off the ground, tossed aside like leaves in a hurricane. But even as he fought, Toby felt something pulling at him. The river's voice was growing louder. More urgent. More demanding. It didn't want to just defend itself. It wanted vengeance. It wanted to drown them all. Toby's breath hitched. No. He clenched his fists, forcing the water to still. The river resisted. It fought against him. It wanted blood. And for the first time, Toby wondered. Had he gained control of the river? Or had the river gained control of him? Toby, stop. Naya's voice pierced through the storm. Toby's heart lurched. His gaze snapped to her. She stood at the edge of the battlefield, drenched, shaking, afraid. Not of the soldiers. Not of the battle. Of him. Toby's breath came fast. The river whispered. They will return. They will never stop. Finish them. Toby's fingers twitched. The water swirled around his feet, waiting for his command. Waiting to drown. Naya took a step forward. Her voice trembled. This isn't you. Toby's chest ached. The river was inside him now, pulsing through his veins, filling his head with its ancient whispers. He was no longer just a man. He was something else. And yet, Naya's voice reached through the storm. Her eyes, deep, violet, real, locked onto his. And for the first time, he felt human again. Toby, she whispered. Come back. His pulse slowed. The water stilled. The jungle fell silent. And in that moment, Toby realized. He had almost lost himself. The soldiers staggered to their feet, coughing, gasping for air. Their leader, so sure of his power before, looked at Toby with fear. He knew now. This was not a battle he could win. Toby exhaled slowly. His voice was softer now, but still filled with power. You have one chance, he said. Leave this place. The soldier hesitated. Then, he nodded. With a sharp command, he ordered his men to retreat. One by one, they disappeared into the jungle. The village of Doko watched. They had seen Toby fight. They had seen his power. And now, they knew they would never face the river's wrath again. But as the last soldier vanished into the trees, Toby felt no victory. Only fear. Because deep inside, the river still whispered. And it would never stop. The jungle stood still. The only sound was the soft lapping of the water against the shore. Toby exhaled, his muscles trembling from exhaustion. The battle was over. The soldiers had retreated. The villagers, once afraid, now stood in awe, their eyes filled with both reverence and relief. But inside him, deep within his soul, Toby felt the river's lingering pull. It had not released him. Not yet. Naya stepped forward, reaching for his hand. It's done, she whispered. Toby turned to her, his heart heavy. Is it? Because he could still feel it. The power. The connection. The river had given him its strength. But what if it never took it back? That night, the villagers gathered. Fires were lit. Women hummed soft songs. Children whispered about what they had seen, the battle between men and river, between land and spirit. But Toby sat at the water's edge, staring at his reflection. Naya sat beside him, her tail shimmering under the moonlight. You're different now, she murmured. Toby sighed. I know. She touched the water with her fingertips. The river doesn't let go easily. Toby frowned. Then how do I break free? Naya hesitated. You may not be able to. His stomach tightened. Could he never return to the man he once was? Would he always feel the river inside him, whispering, waiting? Naya's voice was gentle. You don't have to fight it, Toby. You can live with it. You can learn to balance both worlds. Toby looked at her. How? She smiled softly. By choosing who you are. Not what the river tells you to be. For a long time, Toby sat in silence. Then, he closed his eyes. And he listened. Not to the river. Not to the whispers. But to his own heart. And at last, he made his choice. Toby stood waist-deep in the water. The river was calm. Still. Waiting. He lifted his hands. I honor you, he whispered. I protect you. But I am not yours to control. A soft breeze rippled across the surface. Naya watched with wide eyes. Toby took a deep breath. Release me. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a warmth spread through his chest. The water shimmered. The pressure in his veins, so strong before, began to fade. The river's grip on him was loosening. It wasn't angry. It was accepting. And then, the glow in Toby's eyes dimmed. His heart felt lighter. Naya gasped. It worked. Toby exhaled. The power was still there, but now, it was his to control. He was free. But he would always be connected. And that was enough. The next morning, the villagers met him with smiles. The chief approached, bowing his head. You saved us, Toby. You saved the river. Toby shook his head. The river saved itself. Baba Ajani stepped forward. We will never try to change it again. Toby smiled. Good. The village would live in harmony with the water. The dam would never be built. Doko would be safe. And Toby. He would stay. Not as a government man. Not as a spirit. But as himself. A man who had once come to build a dam. And had found his true home instead. Toby sat beside Naya, watching the river shimmer under the golden sunset. He turned to her. What now? Naya smiled. Now, we live. Toby reached for her hand. Together. She hesitated, then nodded. Together. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, the river whispered one last time. Not in anger. Not in hunger. But in peace. And for the first time in a long, long while, Toby felt truly home. What do you think? What would you have done in Toby's place? Would you have chosen the river's power, or let it go? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing African folk tales.